New buy sell keep avoid is back for Gameweek 26. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. It's time to get those weekly transfer tips, and this week we will be including the managers by popular demand. Let's get going. So as always guys, this video is split into two parts, the first of which we will have a look at those players you may already have and which ones you should keep and which ones you should sell. After that, we'll be having a look at those replacements with players to buy and those players to maybe avoid. Players will be tier listed with the best players at the top and the worst players at the bottom. And as always guys, we are going to start off with our forwards, those forwards that many of you guys have in your team already, and we're going to see whether you should keep them or sell them. And we're going to start off with these keeps here, and there are a few players I would definitely be leaning towards keeping in my FPL team. And first of all, let's talk about Wissa. As someone who bought Wissa into his FPL team last game week, I have to say I feel a little bit unlucky, and anyone who doesn't own Wissa maybe can feel a little bit lucky, because 2 disallowed goals in that game that weren't even really his fault was really unfortunate. He played a very good game, another 2 great finishes to score those 2 goals, but they were disallowed. And on top of that, we can see that he has some insane attacking numbers: 24 shots, 9 big chances, 4.62 XG in the past 6 game weeks, and that excludes those 2 disallowed goals as well. The next fixture, of course, is Leicester, who we know are probably at this moment the worst team in the Premier League, perhaps even worse than Southampton. And after that, Everton at home, Aston Villa at home. These aren't too bad fixtures either for the Brentford boys. So certainly, if you have Wissa in your team, there would be no way I would be selling him. Ignore these recent blanks and kind of watch him play, and you'll quickly understand how good he can be. Let's see what he can do next. Watkins is here as well. He's another player I would look to keep after the double game week. He plays Chelsea at home next, who are in some really poor form at the moment, and I think Watkins can definitely get something out of that game. And how about Chris Wood? He's done it again, scoring a goal from his only shot in the entire game, getting super lucky, if I'm totally honest, with his goal. It kind of bounced off the back of his heel, landed somehow perfectly in front of him, shoots, and big deflection off the Fulham defender for it to go into the back of the net. But that's Chris Wood. We talk so much about Chris Wood and his underlying numbers, but we know by now he is a freak. He is the best finisher in world football, clearly, and he will just keep doing it. So there's no way I would sell him, even in these not so great fixtures: Newcastle, Arsenal and Man City in the next 3. Certainly in game week 29 against Ipswich, you'll probably be glad you held on to him. So really important player for your FPL team still. Monitor Isak, I don't think he is an automatic keep anymore, and certainly you can afford to sell him, particularly with the blank game week coming up in game week 29, where Isak is not going to have a fixture there at all. If you are planning on free hitting in game week 29, I would try and keep Isak if possible, but I think he is edging towards becoming a player who you can potentially sell if you don't mind losing the team value on him, because when we get to game week 32, Newcastle have a double game week against Manchester United and Crystal Palace, and you're definitely going to want him for that one. Haaland has been going under the radar here a little bit, actually performing quite well with 5 goals and 2 assists in the last 6 game weeks, which is pretty impressive. Liverpool at home next is a tough fixture, however, so let's see how he does. If you do have him, I think he's okay to keep, but also given the money he costs, he's also fine to sell. Cody Gakpo, definitely someone to monitor. I'm not expecting him to play on Wednesday for the second game of the double game week, so commiserations to Gakpo owners. But the recent reports is, even though he's not going to be available for the Aston Villa game in game week 25, the injury is not significant and he could make his return for game week 26. Worst case scenario, you could maybe just bench him and then play him in the future fixtures against Newcastle and Southampton at home, which could be pretty nice for him. So maybe a player to keep, maybe a player to bench, but if you do want to sell him, I think that is fine too, with that blank in game week 29. And our final monitor is Joao Pedro. Even though he's playing against Southampton, he hasn't been in the starting 11 for Brighton in the last couple of weeks. And it seems that Brighton are getting results, good results, with Joao Pedro out of the starting 11. So that makes it pretty difficult for him to try and force his way into the starting 11. So maybe another benching for him ahead of this Southampton game in 26, and I am edging towards a sell for him. But the actual sells this week have got to be the injured players, and Dye is going to be out for an unspecified period of time, but he is not expected back in the next couple of weeks. Jackson is going to be out until April, and Havertz could be it could be a season ender for him. So these players, very, very easy, very straightforward players to sell. Outside of Dye, Jackson, Havertz, I don't think there are super obvious sells this week, really, and that's mostly because I don't think we're totally convinced by the buys, but we'll get to the buys in the forward category in the not-so-distant future. As for our midfielders, Cole Palmer, there is no way I would sell him despite some recent lackluster performances. I know it's not great when you spend this money on a player and they don't deliver. However, Aston Villa, it's an okay fixture, but really I'm looking at Game Week 27 and Game Week 28. If you can just hold on to him for these two huge game weeks in 27 and 28, you do not want to sell the Premier League's biggest flat track bully between the two easiest fixtures of his entire season, Southampton at home and Leicester at home. So there's no way I would be selling Cole Palmer right now, just because I'm looking forward to 27 and 28. After that, let's have that discussion again. Brian Mbeumo also had a brilliant game in Game Week 25 against West Ham and was super unfortunate not to get any FPL returns in that game, but he didn't. The next fixture is against Leicester. Again, a player who is playing well, in good form, may not have got the results, but when you have a great fixture next and you are playing well, I think the results will come from Mbeumo, so he's going to be a keep. And Morgan Rogers, if we're talking about players who are unlucky, I think Rogers has to be one of those players as well. Two huge opportunities to score, really unlucky, some great saves by the Ipswich goalkeeper, and also creatively created some really massive chances that were so close to going in. So it had another really good game against Ipswich. Next up, as we mentioned, Chelsea in some bad form at the moment. I would be absolutely more than happy to not just keep Rodgers, but play him as well in this Chelsea fixture. Monitor Luis Diaz. I think if there is a Gakpo injury, that is good for Luis Diaz's minutes. He obviously got the goal and the assist last game week. Maybe a little bit fortunate with the ball kind of bouncing off him for the goal and winning a penalty to get the assist there as well. But regardless, if he's going to be playing, we know that he is going to have opportunities to score and to get attacking returns playing in this Liverpool team. So I don't think he is anywhere near a must-sell. The Man City game as well, it's often a game between Liverpool and Man City. We do see a lot of goals in these games, and you never know, Luis Diaz could be involved. So I don't think he is a keep necessarily, but I don't think he's a must-sell either. Similar situation for Foden. Actually like some of his fixtures coming up, even though the Liverpool and Forest fixtures in the next three are not ideal. His form has dropped off just a tiny bit, I suppose, but that was based on some very lofty performances a few weeks ago. So I still think he is a player you could potentially keep. Elanga, now we're getting towards some players who I'm not so keen on. The 5.3 million man had this amazing game week in Game Week 24, but outside of that, we've had a lot of blanks for him. So away against Newcastle, home against Arsenal, and even home against Man City, not totally convinced by him, and might be a player I'd look to move on to another cheap midfielder, of which we have plenty of options. Don't you worry about that. There's loads of midfield players to buy this week. And Gordon is going to be the other monitor here. He is getting close to becoming a sell as well. Next two fixtures, not ideal for him. He is no Alexander Isak, and Game Week 29 is going to be a blank game week for Newcastle as well. And our sell category is once again occupied by these injured men. Madueke is going to be injured. He's going to be out for some time. Martinelli is going to be out for probably another 3, 4, 5 game weeks as well for him. And Ahmad, not game weeks, sorry, weeks. And Ahmad, season ender for him. So really bad news on Ahmad. I know a lot of people have him in their team, but yeah, it is unfortunate with these injured players. But like I say, in the midfield position, when we get to the buy category, you're going to see there are loads of great options. So you can use these bad situations that you found yourself in and really get a positive spin on it and try and get some results with a brand new player for your FPL team. Defenders, Hall. I don't really see a strong reason to sell Hall this week, considering there are so many defenders with pretty bad fixtures this week that a lot of people own. Hall at home against Forest, I don't think is too bad. As we mentioned about Forest against Fulham and Chris Wood, Fulham were completely all over Forest. Forest really had barely any opportunities to score and were fortunate to get a goal in that game. So I don't want to rule out the idea of Newcastle getting a clean sheet in this game. Hull obviously has a bit of attacking threat as well, which is quite nice. And even though Forest is not the perfect fixture for Hull, you can do a lot worse in this game week in particular. So yes, Hull is certainly going to be a player we might look to sell as we get closer to game week 29. But maybe play him, maybe bench him game week 26. 27, he is a player to bench. Game week 28, you can play him against West Ham. And then, yeah, maybe talk about selling him there. I think unless you really have a player you absolutely love, you would love to buy in defence, and you can't really think of another player to sacrifice, I'd probably just keep Hull, to be honest. I can't really think of a strong argument to sell him. Milenkovic and Aina, the two Forest defenders. I'm going to put Milenkovic above Aina just because he is a lot easier to bench in some of the tougher fixtures. But I think Forest defenders in general are nice players to own long term for your FPL team. So unless you're trying to free up some budget, again, not really too many reasons to sell them. You can just bench them. They're going to be very useful in the future and very useful as defenders in game week 29 for that blank game week as well, if you are not planning on playing your free hit in that week. If you are planning on playing a free hit in game week 29, then maybe there is more reason to sell the likes of Milenkovic and Aina. But I should mention, guys, right now, if you are planning on free hitting in game week 29, I really do recommend you watch the video I put out on Sunday, which was a new chip strategy video, because it seems like free hitting in game week 29 seems to be becoming more and more dangerous, let's put it that way. And yeah, I'm really starting to go off the idea of free hitting in game week 29, so might be worth reconsidering, but please do check out that video if you haven't done already. Liverpool defenders, I think, are players to monitor right now. They don't have good fixtures in the next two. Both of these teams will likely score against Liverpool, and I do think Liverpool looked a little shaky defensively against Wolves at time. And really, the only motivation for keeping these guys is that game week 28 fixture at home against Southampton. And fair enough, with Alexander-Arnold, you maybe get some attacking returns from that fixture. But with Konate and Virgil, maybe not so much. You're just really banking on clean sheets, and there's maybe higher upside elsewhere. Of course, Liverpool players will blank in game week 29, so there's many good reasons to actually sell Liverpool players if you wanted to, particularly in that defensive position. But you could also keep them. That is fine too. And Gavardio, the final player to monitor. Horrible fixture this week. Certainly wouldn't be looking to buy him. But actually, Man City in the future, things are actually looking a little bit better for them with good fixtures on the horizon. We've just got to get through this next block of 3 first. But if you can't wait that long, then maybe you can sell him. I think Aston Villa defenders generally are sells, whether that's Digne or Konsa, who is potentially injured here. Chelsea at home, despite Chelsea's fragilities, when you look at Aston Villa and the way they consistently concede chances and goals, we have to say that even Chelsea can probably score against them. Crystal Palace have been in some okay form as well with in terms of goal scoring, and Brentford, they're another great attacking team in the Premier League. So with those three not great fixtures, game week 29 being a blank, not really looking at any positives here, really, to be honest. So I think, yeah, Villa's defenders can be sold right now. And Martinez, season ender for him. Really bad injury, unfortunately. So he is going to be a player that you have to sell if you do have him in your team. And at this halfway point in the video, if you haven't done already, please do leave a like. It really is appreciated. Do subscribe as well if you want to see these kind of videos every single week. Hopefully you are enjoying them. Let's continue on with the buys and the avoids, and finally, we'll look at some goalkeepers and managers too. So I'm tentatively going to put Wissa at the top of the buy category once again. However, I don't think it is as clear-cut as maybe it was last week. But I'm watching this guy. He's been so unlucky. He's looking so good, so sharp at the moment. And the next fixture is Leicester. I really, really like the look of this. And we've got a player who doesn't blank in game week 29. I think he can still be a very useful asset. But coming in close behind him is Cunha. And actually, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we could see Cunha actually leapfrogging Wissa as the best cheap-ish forward to buy. So I think it is close between these two players. The one thing that puts me off from Cunha is Bournemouth away and Fulham at home in 27, because Fulham actually statistically in the last 6 game weeks, when we've been looking at those underlying numbers, are actually the best defence right now, apparently. So, surprising to me, but Fulham doing a real good job defensively. Bournemouth away is next. That's a tough fixture. It's going to be difficult for Cunha in the next two, but Cunha is improving in his form. He is a penalty taker and he takes a boatload of shots as well. So always going to have roots to those FPL points. So still think he is definitely a player I would be looking to buy. And what a fixture in game week 29 as well. Well, where so many other players will blank, Cunha will face Southampton away. Operation Target Southampton is back on the menu. And Beto, if you're looking for a super cheap guy, he's been showing some really good form recently, really improved. He's playing with high level of confidence. I actually like the way he's speaking at the moment as well. Manchester United are in some poor form, and the fixtures after that for Everton are pretty good for an attacker here as well, with Brentford, Wolves and West Ham, the fixtures. So if you're looking for someone super cheap, Beto would be the guy to go for, particularly if you're looking to free up some budget for some other transfer moves in your team. Wood is one to monitor. I can't really put him any lower than this because no matter what the odds, he seems to score regardless. So even with these tough fixtures, I'm not discounting Chris Wood. How can you at this point? Marmoush is interesting because even though he did just score a hat-trick, and I know people are super hyped on him, and I totally get it, by the way, he does look really good. Liverpool at home might not be the best week to jump in on him. I do think there is potential for him to get some attacking returns in that game, but I'm not 100% convinced that buying a player ahead of a Liverpool game is a good idea. That's why he's not a buy, but he's certainly not an avoid either. So if you do fancy taking the risk in what should, on paper, be a difficult game for Marmoush, then you want to take that risk, I say go for it. Because after that, we've got Spurs, we've got Brighton in 29. These are okay fixtures, and I think longer-term City players are going to be very useful for our FPL teams as well, particularly if you're not planning on wildcarding in 30-31, because those wildcarding in 30 and 31, we're probably going to pick up Marmoush by that point, not going to lie. But if you need to get him without the use of a wildcard soon, hey, why not use a transfer? Mateta is super interesting because if you don't have him already, that game week 29 is scary. That Fulham away fixture is scary. So there are some nuggets here. Aston Villa at home, Ipswich at home, I like in 27 or 28. But if you're not planning on free hitting in game week 29, then you're just going to be a man down in your FPL team. However, because Mateta is putting up such great numbers and there are some good fixtures in here for him, and we're going to have a double game week for Crystal Palace in game week 32, I'm kind of tempted to say, if you're free hitting in game week 29 and you know you're free hitting in game week 29, actually Mateta would be one of the first players I'd be looking to buy right now. So yeah, it's super situational. It's super strategy dependent on what you're going to do with game week 29. But Mateta could be an interesting pick for certain people. Raul Jimenez, I think I may be being a bit harsh on him here because he is improving in form. He's taking a crazy amount of shots, and the fixtures next three, I mean, they're not amazing, but they're certainly not bad. These are okay fixtures for him. It could be a potential shout, but I think there are other players who are cheaper maybe, or putting up better numbers generally and maybe have slightly better fixtures, and that's kind of relegated Raul down to this position. But actually, again, all of these monitors, I don't really have any problem with these players. I would be okay with buying them, actually. But really, there are some avoids. Watkins would be one of them. Even though I wouldn't sell him, I wouldn't buy him. Because even though, you know, we can say game week 29, I'm going to free hit in game week 29. I don't need to worry about that with Watkins. Watkins, you know, he doesn't have the game week 32 double like Mateta and Isak. So I do think that pushes Watkins down the pecking order, even if you are free hitting in game week 29. Isak, yes, he does have the double in 32, but if you don't have him already, are you really going to pick him up ahead of Forest and Liverpool? Probably not. And Welbeck, despite the fact that Operation Target Southampton is a go, it has to be said, Welbeck, he's not really taking shots, and that's kind of evidenced more than ever by the fact that he hasn't scored a Premier League goal since October. So, yes, target Southampton, but Welbeck might not be the man to target Southampton with. Okay, midfielders, and there's plenty of juicy options here. Cliver and Dango are going to be top of the list. Once again, these players are going to be super high in the pecking order, with Bournemouth with some fabulous fixtures, no blank in game week 29. In fact, a favourable fixture in Game Week 29. And the good fixtures for Bournemouth just keep coming and coming and coming for a long period of time. I think the one thing making me maybe put Cliver ahead of Dango is the penalties, but I think Dango at 5.1 million, if we're looking at value for money, look no further. This really does look very, very nice indeed. So yeah, if you want to get the out of position Bournemouth striker, then yes, definitely recommend him as a buy. And he's a differential too. Not many people own him, as is Nwaneri, 4.5 million. The cheap midfielder position is full of delights at the moment. It really, really is. And Nwaneri, despite just the 1 assist in Game Week 25, he looked brilliant in that game. And I'm not just saying that as an Arsenal fan. He kind of hit the woodwork. He had some super close chances to score. He looks amazing. And I promise you I'm not overhyping him. Okay, maybe I am a little bit. But for 4.5 million for a Arsenal midfielder who should be good for minutes with all of the injuries right now, hey, why not? That is a good opportunity, so it's got to be a buy for me. Mbeumo and Semenyo, unlucky to miss out on the buy category. Mbeumo we've spoken about already, but Semenyo, it's really only because Cliver and Dango are probably better options than him right now. But if you want to double up or triple up, I don't have a big problem with it. I think that's fine. You know, go for it, guys. Bournemouth looking good at the moment. They're cooking. They're cooking every week. Marino is here as well. This is a super interesting one. So Marino actually came off the bench in Game Week 25 and played as the central striker, and whilst on the pitch scored 2 goals. So that actually worked out quite well for Arsenal. And if Arsenal's solution moving forward is to play Marino as the central striker, well, this could be super, super interesting for the 6 million man. But there is a big risk here. There is a chance that Marino does not play as striker. He's left on the bench, as he has done many times in the last period of games. There is still rotation risk for him. So if you do want to take a risk, could be interesting, but there is some risk there. Kaoru Mitoma is interesting. I love this Southampton fixture, but the fixtures after that are not really doing it for me. Minter even more so, because he does have that little bit of rotation risk. He's only started 3 out of the last 6 game weeks, so there is some risk there. But again, Southampton is good, but after that, not so good. And I think these Brighton midfielders really are being pushed down the list by all of the better opportunities. So it's not necessarily that they're bad picks, but more so that there is just opportunity cost for going for these players rather than your Cliver, Dango, Nwaneri, Mbeumo, these kind of guys like that. Even lower down the list, we've got Smith Rowe. Still not totally convinced by him as an FPL pick considering the other options, but I think he's okay. And Alanga is really the only player on this list that people are bringing in that I would be more confident in saying, yeah, I would just pretty much straight up avoid this guy. Newcastle away, Arsenal at home, Man City at home. It's not a good run of fixtures. His numbers aren't that great. Yes, he's got plenty of assists, but that's only because Wood is the supreme finisher in world football right now. So, yeah, maybe I do need to factor that in a little bit more, but there's just better options out there. Defenders to buy. Okay, Kirkes is still at the top of this list with the great fixtures for Bournemouth. He is up to 5 million now though, so he's getting a little more expensive, but we do love a bit of Kirkes on the FPL Mate channel. Gabriel should be back in the conversation if you don't have him in your team currently, and I still like Robinson. You know, it's still not too late to go for Robinson if you want to, ahead of his fixtures against Palace, Wolves and Brighton. Saliba may be one to monitor, but if you're going to pick an Arsenal defender, it's going to be Gabriel realistically, but you know, he could be okay to add to your Arsenal defense as well. Tarkowski is interesting for a slightly cheaper defensive option with some okay fixtures coming up, but not convinced that this is the right time to buy, but you could do. Munoz, super dependent on your free hit in Game Week 29 or lack thereof, because Fulham away, not expecting too much there. Aston Villa is a little nicer, but that Game Week 29 blank is scary if you're only looking to add Crystal Palace defenders to your team now. And Aina, yeah, congratulations, Aina owners. I'm not putting him in the avoid category. I'm putting him in the monitor category. But yeah, probably wouldn't buy him ahead of this run of fixtures, but no, Forest have this ability to keep clean sheets against anyone. They are the stats deniers, really. Trent, don't think it's the week to buy him, to be honest. Away against Man City, just not a good time to buy Trent if you don't have him already. Gahey, absolutely no interest whatsoever. Even if you are free hitting in 29, just go for Munoz for that attacking threat. So much better. And Gvardiol, yeah, again, not really a time to buy him ahead of Liverpool at home. Like I say, I think there could be some goals in that game, but hey, you never know. Could be Alexander-Arnold and Gvardiol involved in those goals. Let's go to our goalkeepers next. Pickford, if you have him, certainly a player to keep. No problem with keeping him. Sells. Rough fixtures coming up, but I still would look to keep him. You know, mostly with goalkeepers, we're looking for those long-term options. And I think both Pickford and Sells offer those long-term opportunities, particularly if you're planning on wildcarding in and around game week 30, 31, 32 maybe. Then, you know, you're going to be able to replace them in a few weeks anyway. So just keep them for now. They're absolutely fine. Sell Dubravka. I think after the Man City loss, that may be Dubravka's last game between the sticks, with Nick Pope returning to action. And Sanchez has also been dropped by his team. So a pretty good reason to sell him. Generally, the only reasons I would be selling a goalkeeper is if I thought they weren't going to play. And I think Dubravka and Sanchez are the two best examples of that right now. In terms of buying a new goalkeeper, still like Kepa for a Bournemouth goalkeeper, Raya for an Arsenal goalkeeper, but I don't think I'd look to buy Sells or Flecken this game week. Sells, rough fixtures, so I wouldn't necessarily sell him, but I wouldn't buy him either. He's like kind of a don't buy, don't sell kind of guy right now. And Flecken is also in here. I will never trust the Brentford defence, and for that reason, despite the next two fixtures being not too bad for Brentford, I would not be buying Flecken as a goalkeeper right now, even at that price tag. And finally, managers. And to be honest, guys, I maybe take this with a bit of a pinch of salt, but if you have Iraola or Moyes as your assistant manager right now, I would be absolutely fine to keep them. I've put Slot and Emery as sells, but that's really because these are really the only four assistant managers that a lot of people have. Like, a lot of people who are on an assistant manager will have one of these four guys, and very few people will have anyone else. So, you know, there's not really too many opportunities to sell any other kind of managers because people just don't have them. So you could sell Slot ahead of Man City. It is a rougher game there. We know that away, but I don't think he's a must sell. So you kind of have to balance it, you know, both with Slot and Emery. If you have a free transfer, you'd like to use it, you see an opportunity, then I say go for it. But if you want to use your transfers on other areas of your pitch, maybe you've got some injuries, maybe you don't have many free transfers to use, maybe you don't want to take a hit, I think it's fine to keep Slot and Emery as well. So you've got to weigh it up, and also weigh up, are you going to need transfers for game week 29 if you are not free hitting? So lots to consider there before we say that Slot and Emery are definite sells. But I think that each team is more than capable of getting a result in game week 26, even if the odds aren't super high. But we have got some other options where you could get a little bit more points potential. So Arteta is probably the definitive safe pick for your assistant manager, Chip. West Ham at home is obviously a fixture in which we expect Arsenal to do well, keep a clean sheet, and score some goals in there as well. So if you do have Slot, you want to move to another 1.5 million manager, you want to use that transfer on your manager, totally okay. I think Arteta would be the safe bet for game week 26. Of course, we do have Glasner here as well, and provided that Aston Villa don't beat Liverpool tomorrow, Glasner and Crystal Palace are actually going to get table bonus against Fulham. And looking through all of the teams that have potential table bonus, I think I like Glasner the most for this game week against Fulham. So yeah, it's going to be difficult to pick a table bonus team in game week 26, but if I had to pick one, it would be Glasner against Fulham. That's probably your best chances there. Avoid Silva because I just don't really see why you would go there. There are better opportunities. I don't think a game against Crystal Palace is a guaranteed win, and I think there are just better options right now, so wouldn't be using the transfer there. Even would prefer like Iraola, maybe prefer Glasner as well, even if it's a little bit more high risk, high reward. But if you're not getting table bonus, then why go for something like this? Don't really see it. And we've got Ruud van Nistelrooy here as well as an avoid. Don't ask me why, but thousands of people have already transferred in Van Nistelrooy into their FPL teams for the assistant manager. And the only reason I can think why people are doing that is because they're Manchester United fans and just want to see Van Nistelrooy in their FPL team once again for some nostalgia purposes, because really, Leicester is not exactly a team I would like to back right now. So don't know why so many people are transferring in Van Nistelrooy, but I saw the stats, so I thought, let's put him in the avoid category. If you are buying Van Nistelrooy this week, let me know in the comments why you are doing that. And of course, guys, if there are any players we didn't mention in today's video, and I know we spoke about a lot of players and managers this video, do let me know if I missed anyone out, and we will try and give them a rating, buy, sell, keep, or an avoid in the comment section. Of course, if you would disagree with any of my placements, let me know, and let me know why, because I'm always keen to learn from you guys as well. But thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like, do subscribe if you're new around here. Check out the amazing the chip strategy video that I uploaded a couple of days ago. It's an absolute banger, and I know you guys are gonna find it super useful. But until tomorrow's video, 100 experts, I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.